Welcome to the Biz Bash podcast, where we make biz strategy a piece of cake. I'm Elizabeth.
And I'm Cami, but you might know us better as Eliza Ann Calligraphy and Cami Monet. We want to help you, our fellow stationers, artists, and calligraphers, confidently build a profitable and personality-driven creative biz.
We're here to share our honest-to-goodness advice and actionable strategies for ambitious artists.
So put on your party hat, quit being a procrastinator gator, and let's get this party started.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Biz Birthday Bash podcast. I am barely even containing my excitement. I just want to giggle like a crazy person because we have Holly from Sablewood Paper Co. with us today to talk about a very fun, brand new thing we've never discussed before, which is Kickstarter campaigns specifically for products. You guys, I love Holly. I just can't. I just need to get it out because I love Holly. I'm just beaming when I talk to her. A little bit of context, Holly was part of the Stationer Summit we did back in 2019. All three of us, I feel have been friends for a long time. Holly's willing to take my late night phone calls. So, it's just a good friendship, a good thing we have going. And she's so knowledgeable, guys. She's done so many resources for other stationers before. And I have been telling Holly forever, we need to have you on the podcast. I've been saying that to her for 2 years. And so we're making it happen. So let me read the introduction for Holly real quick. And then we will officially welcome her to the show and let her talk to you guys. So Holly is the owner and designer of Sablewood Paper Company, which is a custom wedding design studio as well as a stationery and gift shop. She's originally from Florida, but moved to Seattle in 2017 on a cross-country road trip with her husband and their 2 cats in the backseat. Sablewood was only a part-time gig back then, but has grown into a full-time career and multi-award-winning invitation design studio. In the last 2 years, Holly has developed a retail and wholesale addition to Sablewood, focusing on what she calls gifts with meaning, aka gifting for special occasions. Her products have been sold worldwide and are carried in shops across the USA, with some of her favorite products being the giftable items like keychains and enamel pins. So Holly, hi!
Hi! Yay! I'm so excited for this.
Guys, also, Holly is our hero because she's wearing a Jurassic Park t-shirt today. And if you know anything about Cami, that's Cami's all-time favorite movie. She watches it on TV 3 times a week.
But wait, the important question is, Cami, do you like the Jurassic World sequels?
I still do, but I'm also easily entertained, so you can't hold that against me.
I won't.
I mean, the first one is obviously the GOAT, but
iconic.
I will still watch all the new ones, and I will watch the other one that comes out in 2023 or whenever that comes out. I mean, I'm ready for it. I will say, I think the Jurassic World, is that the most recent one?
Yeah, that's the new trilogy.
Okay, so the new one, I feel those are better than the second and third Jurassic Park.
Oh my gosh, those.
That
was terrible.
Talk about those.
I mean, these are the real questions that we're here for today.
So I'm okay, this falls second place for me. But the first one, oh my gosh, I just never can't get any better than that. Yeah.
Yes, I totally agree. The first one cannot be topped by anything.
I mean, the raptor scene in the kitchen is just...
I still get chills.
Oh, I hate that part. I hate it. I love it so much. Every time it comes out, I'm oh no, I'm so excited. But it's a weird feeling. Okay, obviously we're so excited to have Holly on, you guys. I feel this is going to be a very tangential episode. And I also want to point out that we all... Oh, wait, I have 3 cats now. I was going to say we all have 2 cats, but I forgot. I have a third one.
How did you forget?
I'm just so used to thinking I have 2, and I forgot I've been crazy cat lady, so never mind. We all have multiple cats.
She's probably going to have more now with the new studio. She's going to find a stray cat by the studio.
There's already a ton there. I actually named one. His name's Claude, Claude Monet.
Oh no.
He's so cute. He's a very thick, black and white, chunky boy. So he was just hanging outside the door. And Alex is don't you do it. I was I'm going to do it.
It's going to be your studio cat.
There's 13 cats over there that I've counted so far. So it's going to be great. There's a little neighborhood down the street.
This is a problem.
It's problematic. Okay, Holly, back to you. Forget about me at my cats.
I'm ready.
Tell us a little bit about your stationery journey and how you got involved in this field.
I mean, how far back do we want to go here?
As far back as you
want to go. As far back as you want to go.
Go back as far. So I guess it all kind of started back in 2008 when I graduated from college, which I'm really aging myself now. But I got a degree in hospitality management, and that was a terrible time to get a degree in hospitality management because the market had just crashed and I was living in Orlando. So I had to move home with my parents, which is something no 21-year-old like ever wants to do. And after about a year there, I was kind of like, what am I doing with my life? I need to do something. And it has to be something totally different than working in hotels. So I went back to school to get another degree in graphic design and found that I really enjoyed product design, which coincidentally I never got to use. For like anything up until about 3 years ago. But I think that kind of started me on the stationery journey because it led to my first studio job as a graphic designer. And while I was at that job, I found my parents' wedding anniversary from the 80s. And it was like that terrible, almost like, oh God, like sign painter font. It was awful.
Oh,
God,
you mean,
awful.
okay. So you meant you found their invitations. You
Yeah.
accidentally said, I found their wedding anniversary.
Oh, I'm sorry. Wedding invitations.
Wedding invitations. Yeah.
It was on their anniversary that I found it. Sorry.
Okay.
Totally got my words mixed up there. And so when I saw it, I was like, wow, I didn't even know that I could do this with a graphic design degree because in 2013, 2014, that wasn't really like a thing on the internet yet. Like nobody was really doing that. And so I kind of said, like, I'll start teaching myself how to do this. I'll start with calligraphy and kind of taught myself calligraphy. And then I sort of naturally segued into stationery. It just kind of came about, like someone booked me for calligraphy and they were like, oh, do you also do wedding invitations? And I was like, I don't see why I couldn't. I have a design degree.
You're like, well, why not?
Why not? And I like totally faked it till I made it and said like, I could absolutely do wedding invitations. And that poor bride, like she had no idea. And she still doesn't to this day that she was my first client. And so I just outed myself. Sorry, Jessica. You were my first client.
I feel like we all have like our first client. We're just like, oh my gosh, you poor thing. Like my first client, she didn't know that she was my first client either. And she was like, what paper type? I was like, well, most of my brides pick this.
Yes.
Like, I had no idea what I was talking about.
And this, sorry.
I was going to say, I'm afraid, I always want to be like, this was my first invitation that I ever did, but I'm afraid she's going to see it on Instagram and be like, wait a minute.
And like, look back on it and say like, yes, red flags. I saw them everywhere. My poor bride it was all foil. It was like hand torn edges and calligraphy and a wax seal. And we did like her save the dates, her bridal shower, her invitations, and her day of stuff. And it was all my first time doing it. I was like, this is like an A+, like fly by the seat of your pants job, Holly. Like, good. Way to go. Why did you do this?
Well, that's not an easy first time one. Like all the bells and whistles. Oh my gosh.
I learned a ton. Learned what not to do, which is maybe like do some testing before you throw yourself out into the world. But yeah, it was great. Turned out okay.
I really want to post my first invitation suite now that we're talking about it. I had an illustration I was really proud of. It was the cathedral in Cologne, Germany. So it was like an intense illustration. But the rest of the invitation suite, whoo-wee guys, it was something else. My first invitation suite, like truly was like my own invitation suite, but like first one for a client. I like somehow took like 3 steps backwards. So anyway, everyone's always so lucky, you know, always lucky to be that first client.
Well, somebody's got to be the first. You know?
Someone's got to be the first. When was that, Holly? Like your first invitation suite? Do you remember?
So my technical first was also my own, but I wouldn't really call it an invitation suite. It was like one card. I don't even think I sent out like reply cards. So like the first invitation suite that I did was actually later that year, 2015, right after we got married. So I think it was like October or something. It was very soon after that.
Okay.
Because I realized, like, I love this. This is great. This gives me joy and life. And I just can't see myself doing anything else. I don't want to work with clients who have deadlines of next week. And that was also a really silly thing to think because, hello, weddings and deadlines. Like, that's a thing.
Yes.
Wait,
But,
yeah.
you know, baby Holly didn't know that.
Baby Holly didn't realize how stressful wedding invitations can
No.
be. It's all fun and games when you have just one client. You're like, this is so enjoyable.
easy.
And then you get multiple. You're like,
Yeah.
wait a minute.
This is the most stressful thing ever. Throw in a couple paper shortages and a pandemic, and then we're all...
Why do I have so many gray hairs? I will say I didn't
That's
have
right.
gray hair until I started doing wedding invitations. So there you go.
I do feel like, yeah, like the stationery world right now is like, I imagine us all collectively like in a boat that's sinking, but we all have our buckets and we're like tossing water overboard all together.
And the holes just keep getting bigger.
But it's
and
like
bigger. And
a
we're
really
maybe if we
pretty
get more
boat.
water out.
I need a bigger bucket.
Someone's like sewing the sails. Like, maybe if we get more wind.
Oh
my
man.
gosh.
Okay, Holly, I don't know if I even know this about you. What were you doing before you did stationery? So you said you had it as your part-time hustle for a while, or like your side hustle. So what was your day job, I guess, before you went full-time?
So my day job, back when I started Sablewood, was my mom and I decided to open up a paint and sip studio, which is where you like paint a painting and drink wine or beer or whatever. And neither of us are artists, so that was really interesting. We like hired artists to come teach the classes for us, and we just kind of like art directed everything. Like, we want a painting that has palm trees in it. Please paint this for us. And that was what we did for like 3 years. And that's actually when I was living in Florida and Mr. Sablewood was out here in Seattle. So for like 3 years, he was out here. I was back in Florida, just working my little butt off and teaching myself calligraphy. So this was like side hustle Sablewood, full-time paint and sip. So I'd be there for like 12 hours during the day, and then I'd be up till like 3 a.m. teaching myself calligraphy. And then when we finally closed the business down, my mom got sick, so she couldn't do the business anymore. And so I moved out here with Mr. Sablewood, and I desperately tried to find a job, like anywhere, please hire me someone. And all of the jobs I applied for were like, no, I'm sorry, you're a little overqualified for the job you're applying for. So bye. I was like, I will take anything. Please just give me something. I can't survive on this side hustle alone. And so for like a year, I had nothing. I was just kind of living off my husband's income, which I'm so grateful for, because it really allowed me to kind of grow Sablewood into something bigger. And eventually I did find like a little 15-hour-a-week job at a stationery store that was local to me. So that was really great. That I think was kind of what led me into product design, and, you know, making my own sorts of products and things like that to sell in a shop.
Yeah. What shop was that? That was the shop in Seattle then?
Yeah, it was. It's still around. It's called Paper Delights.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think
it was kind of by the university district. So you probably, yeah.
I'd probably like know of it, or at least like know where it was. Like a little context, guys. I went to school in Seattle. So Holly and I actually got coffee in Seattle in 2018 when I was out there on the Starbucks on Queen Anne. So
fancy Starbucks.
And I remember very, very clearly like meeting Holly in person and talking about how Holly would send her invitations to her clients like unsealed, and they would have to seal it and mail it. And me talking about how I mailed my invitations on behalf of my clients. And she's like, so wait, how does that work? Like both of us, I was like, wait, how does that work? She was like, how does that work? Like both of us were like trying to figure out each other's like methods and stuff. And it was really fun. It was a good time because Holly was like in person what I would have expected in person, because there's nothing worse than getting together in person and being like, this is weird.
Yes, we've all had those experiences. Please,
Yes,
guys, if
we
you're
have.
on Instagram, be like you are on Instagram as you
Just
are in
be
real life.
yourself.
Please.
Was I shorter in person, Holly? Everyone's always like, you're shorter than I thought you would be.
It's not like movies, I feel like. In movies, I feel like everybody looks taller. But on Instagram, I feel like everybody's short. And so when I meet them in real life, I'm like, whoa, you're a giant. Or like, oh, you're exactly how I pictured. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I think we're about the same height. So that was kind of like nice. Anywho, already going down the tangents. Before we really get started with all the Kickstarter stuff, I want to like toot Holly's horn for her because her and her husband built her backyard studio from the ground up. And I wanted to hear about that real quick, Holly. And funny enough, today you had shared that when we're recording this, guys, so this doesn't come out till like November, but we're recording in August. And Holly had posted just this morning that it was a year since you guys broke ground on the studio and started everything. So I want to hear about that for like a couple minutes. Okay.
So last year during the pandemic, the beginning, when we were kind of in lockdown for a couple weeks, my husband was like, we should build you a studio in the backyard. And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. He was like, okay, we're going to do it anyway. I said, all right. I said, let's hire a contractor. And he said, no, we're going to do it ourselves. And I said, you're crazy. And then he drew up like a floor plan for the studio and was like, look, we can do it all ourselves. It's so easy. And I said, okay, like a fool.
I think our husbands are the same person, actually.
Oh, it's just, I look back on it now and I'm like, I wish I could go back and just shake myself and be like, hire someone, don't do it yourself. But we like had a shed that was cinder block in the backyard. So we had to like tear that down, which we had to physically get like a sledgehammer out and just beat the crap out of it for like 3 days. And it was awful because it's here in Seattle in the summer, it gets really hot and there's no AC. So like you don't ever get a cool down period. You're just out there sweating and dying. And then you just go inside and sweat and die some more. So, it was not the ideal time to start that. But anyway, we like rented a sod cutter, cut up the yard to get the foundation put down and put in like cinder block foundation pillars and had to like build the foundation out of these massive blocks of wood. And basically like over 6 or 8 months kind of built it from the ground up all on our own. The only thing we didn't do was when the electrician had to come out and kind of like make sure that everything wasn't going to like spark and burn the building down. But, we bought windows. Like I found $15 windows at the Habitat for Humanity store, which was amazing. And they're like massive windows. So I have them like up that are always letting light in. And then we found other windows at like Home Depot and stuff. And we bought a door. And I know, obviously you have to have a door to get into the studio.
No, she just climbs through the windows, guys. The $15 windows.
Just zip line
I was really
in.
impressed with that door purchase, clearly. But like, it was really cool because I got to create it from like my own vision. It wasn't something that was already here. It was kind of like, well, you have 200 square feet to work with. How do you want that to look? And so every decision that I made was like me and how it was going to benefit my business. And it was really hard work. And I almost died like twice, literally. But I'm so thankful for it now. To not be in the house anymore, working out of like this tiny bedroom. So
yeah. Like, okay, so like design decision, like when you're planning, like, oh, I'm going to put shelves here and stuff here. Like, was that just so overwhelming? Because that's how I feel right now. So,
yeah. Oh yeah, you are going through that.
Like,
yeah. So I had to create a digital footprint in Illustrator because that's the only thing that I can use really well. I don't use like Autodesk very well. So I had to like come up with the dimensions for all the things that I already had and dimensions for things that I wanted to get. And then I just created like little blocks in the Illustrator document and just moved them around and said like, I also created like a red area where that would be like your footpath. So you obviously want it to be a certain width throughout the studio. So you don't want anything encroaching on your like where you're walking.
Right.
Otherwise you'll just fill it with stuff and you'll never be able to walk in the studio. So that's actually how I came up with how big the shelves needed to be in my storage area, because I knew I needed to have like 36 inches was a safe width to walk through and also pull products off shelves and things like that. So I was like, if I only have 60 inches to work with, my shelves can't be that deep. So that was like the best way that I found to really work through that, I think.
I did something similar, except incredibly old school, because I like paper. So I did mine to scale and then made little pieces of furniture that I cut out, like a little dollhouse, and was like moving that around. I was like, can someone walk in 2 feet? And I was like, 2 feet? Yeah, the footpath or whatever, like you're talking about. Yeah. And I was like, that's going to be pretty tight if anyone bends over, like all over, because you're like trying to maximize as much as possible. And I was like, okay, I gotta like do some reconfiguring here, find skinnier shelves or whatever. Like it's definitely a thing. It's hard. It's difficult. It's difficult to figure it out.
And you don't think about like, well, if something's on the shelf, well, then it's going to also be like, in addition, so if it's 12 inches of shelf and you put something that's 12 inches long on the shelf, then you have to pull that out. So that's 24 inches. And then you have to find like room to stand in. So you need more than, 24 inches of space really to like stand in. And it's math all day. And it drove me a little crazy, but it all worked out in the end. So
I know you guys did an amazing job. Holly has a studio highlight in her Instagram profile if any of you guys want to go back and watch the journey, because it's really incredible. I would like sit down and show my husband Will. I'd be like, look what Holly is doing. Oh, look where they are today. Look what step they're in now. Like I was always just like obsessed with watching what you guys were doing, as if I'm not obsessed with you enough already, as we have disclosed.
I was going to say, you sharing that with Will, we actually ran into one of Daniel's coworkers and her husband at Costco the other day. And they were like, the husband like pulled my husband aside and was like, by the way, my wife showed me the videos of the studio that you built for Holly. And I'm really mad at you because now she wants one. And I'm like, oh no, we're destroying marriages over here. It's terrible.
People say stuff like that to Will and I all the time too, that they're like, we love seeing like your house updates. Yeah. If we tried to do that, we would kill each other. And I was like, well, it's not like Will and I haven't tried during some projects.
Yeah, I mean,
okay, Holly.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I was like, we need to tell the peeps about Kickstarter, but if you had something else to share, of course.
Nope, I'm good. We're ready. Let's do it.
Okay, we're ready.
So products kind of started in a really weird way. The stationery store that I worked for was like, hey, do you have any cards? We'd love to carry your line if you have any. And I was like, yeah, sure. Absolutely. I have some. And I ran home and designed some cards. And that's how that worked. But then I kind of realized, wait a minute, like with a wedding business, I already kind of have products in signage, and I was doing wood signs in my business since I opened in 2015. And then I was like, why don't I do vow books? Like that's a very weddings focused thing. And I already provide them for my stationery clients. So why wouldn't I sell them? And so it was like a very odd, like I didn't wake up one day and say, I'm going to create products. It was more like people foisted that on me. Like, we need you to create products, so go do it. And I said, okay. And it just kind of happened. It was very natural, I guess, in a weird way.
And then, at what point where you're like, okay, people are asking for this, but then you also reached a point where you're like, I have all these ideas. I'm going to take it to the next level.
Yeah, that came really quickly after that, because I kind of caught the same bug that I did with wedding invitations. It was very much like, hey, remember that product design like minor that you got in college? This is product design. Like, you loved that. Just continue doing this and make your own products. And like, I remember having a conversation with my mom and saying, I want to open my own stationery store. And she said, well, what are you going to carry? You don't have a product line. And I was like, oh, I'll carry like rifle and stuff like that. And she was like, well, you're a designer. You should carry your own stuff. And I said, oh, yeah, I guess I could do that. That's a good idea. I do have a degree in this. So yeah, it was a bunch of factors kind of coming at me from different directions that were I think it was kind of just like the universe's way of saying, hey, you have this capability. Why aren't you doing this? All these other people can see it and you can't. Like, here, like, we'll keep pushing this at you until you actually get it.
I know. Sometimes it takes like everyone being like, you need to do this, like all this. And you're like, well, yeah, I could. And then you really think about it and you're like, wait a minute, that does sound pretty cool. I could do that. And look where it's going. Now you have a studio, you got inventory. It's just really cool. So
It's wild.
It's wild. And tell us too, Holly, because I remember talking to you about this on one of our phone calls. You were like, the side of products that I didn't realize was like packaging. You're like, I love it was one of your keychains.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I love my keychains. I hate packaging them.
Yes.
You're just like, it will be the death of me.
Yes. So fun fact, I just had my mom here for a month helping me fulfill orders and do all kinds of stuff during wedding season. And I was like, here, do a bunch of keychains because I hate doing them. She took care of all of my keychains for me, and I feel so much better because it is such a pain in my butt. And there's always that one thing, in your business where you're just like, I hate doing taxes, or like, I really hate emailing or whatever. I hate social media, but this is my thing. Like, I hate keychains. I hate packaging them.
And you're like, they sell really well.
They do. They sell so well, and I hate them.
And you're like, there's just no other way to do this, though. Like, there's only like one way to package them, and it's just
Well, I'm sure Cammie and you, Elizabeth, both understand the importance of packaging something that you're selling at a certain price point. Like, you can't sell $5,000 wedding invitations and send them to somebody in a paper bag. Like, that doesn't jive. And you can't sell $15 keychains that are just like loose with like a little tag hanging off them. Like, they have to have some more pizzazz to them. And the pizzazz takes time.
The pizzazz takes time.
I'm getting all like emotional over here because it's so traumatic.
Oh my gosh, we have. Okay, so Holly, you have obviously done a ton of beautiful, beautiful products. And at what point did Kickstarter catch your eye? And when did the wheels start turning of like, oh, I could launch a product this way?
So I first discovered Kickstarter when Glowforge was on Kickstarter back in 2015. And I was like, ooh, I really want a Glowforge. How fun. And I was like, but $3,000 is way too much. But how cool is it that they broke records on Kickstarter? And so I kind of dove into the company a little bit more to find out what Kickstarter was. And, it's a crowdfunding site. So basically, we'll just use Glowforge as an example. They put their product on Kickstarter as a 30-day campaign, and anybody can pledge for a reward, which basically would be like receiving a Glowforge at the end of that 30-day campaign. So it's a crowdfunding website that's kind of like a no pressure thing. If the campaign doesn't reach a funding goal that the campaign owner sets at the beginning of the campaign, then you don't get charged for anything and you're not out any money as a backer. But if they do reach the campaign funding goal, then you do get charged and you also get a reward that's set to ship like whenever the creator sets that timeline. So it's a really interesting way of pledging support for somebody without getting anything physical for months. I just found it really fascinating. But I didn't really know how that could really apply to my business until last year, when I was brainstorming new products with a friend of mine. We were talking about introducing enamel pins into our lines, and we were doing a bunch of research trying to figure out how much those cost. And, we were like, this is going to get kind of expensive if we want to do several designs, because enamel pins are not cheap, especially when it comes to like all of the things, the packaging that goes into it and just the design time and everything. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to do a Kickstarter for this and see if there's even any like desire for that out there, because nobody wants to launch a product that costs hundreds of dollars and then nobody buys it. And then you're just sitting with inventory on your shelf for months and months. And then you put it on sale and then you don't make any money. So I looked into Kickstarter a little bit and I found that there's like a huge community of enamel pin makers on Kickstarter. And so I backed a couple projects to start with to see how the process worked and to do kind of like some recon work. And
what do you mean by a couple? Because I stalked you on Kickstarter early today, and I think you might have 40 now.
40. Yeah. Well, I started with a couple. I've gotten a little obsessive. I am an enamel pin collector. So
I always knew that you loved,
yes.
I always knew you had loved enamel pins. So when I was on your Kickstarter today, it was like, Holly has backed 40 campaigns. I like click on it.
It's all
these
pins.
like enamel pins. I was like, oh, this is so Holly. I like wasn't even surprised. But Tammy and I talk about that all the time of like, ordering from someone for the sake of research, like not that you're going to copy them, but for the sake of research to understand the process, to understand the shipping and how things are kind of like packaged and how that looks. And do you like how it turns out at the end of the day? Things like that, you know? So that was smart.
Yeah. I mean, we all do it unintentionally every single day when we walk into any stationery store. For example, if you pick up a card, you're internalizing like, oh, well, I love this paper. You know, this envelope is really great. Why does everybody use Euro flap versus square flap? Or, you know, then it's also in this clear sleeve, but this one is, you know, it has a flap on the clear sleeve. Why does it have that? And you're just like processing this unintentionally anyway. So why not just use that free market research to come up with your own sort of designs in your head for what you want your product to look like and how it's going to work best for your customers. So yeah, I mean, like you never want to copy anybody, obviously, but there's only so many ways that you can do cards, pins, keychains, wrapping paper, you know, all of those things, unless you're like Cami and then you create party pennants and then you just like break the wheel and
the world is broken now thanks to the party pennant.
Oh, my fingers are broken thanks to the party pennant. But yeah, that's so true. I mean, everything is research, right? Like sometimes it's like, oh, what's missing in this picture? Like what's missing in this store where I could add something? Like I see everyone's done all this stuff. What could I do? And that's kind of how like the party pennants came. But yeah, every store you go into is research. I mean, I'm looking at everything. I'm looking at how they lay out the store, looking at the colors they use, and like design, like displays of clothing. I mean, everything becomes a potential like product inspiration.
Yeah, and it works the same way with Kickstarter because they have a bunch of they call them stories. So that's actually like your project details. So everybody's project details are going to be different. You start with a completely blank slate. So you kind of have to look at other people's campaigns and say, what do I like and not like about those? How much information is everybody sharing? Do I feel comfortable giving my money to someone who I've never met before just by looking at their campaign and their details and everything? So it's kind of like, I'm just totally not even going to go that way because that was going to be a total tangent. So we're just going to say that it's just like doing market research online with other people whenever you go to like Rifle's website or Target's website and you say, how do they have product details listed? It's and then comparing that to your own shop. It's the same thing when you're looking to start a crowdfunding campaign is you have to go in and do a bunch of research before you start or you're just going to be drowning.
Yeah. And so that was good for you to see that there's a huge market for enamel pins on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And then because I definitely pledged for your first campaign. I have my little celestial stamps. I used some of my birthday money, Holly. Okay.
Oh my gosh. I'm so honored.
It's a big deal.
It was a big deal. And I told Will, I was like, I'm using some of my birthday money to pledge to Holly's campaign because these are so cool. Yeah, I was like really excited when I finally got mine. But yeah, it's cool that people have used Kickstarter for product, like creative product and for enamel pins. So that was good news for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it was very cool. And it's not just, I know that my experience is enamel pin based, but it's not just enamel pins. I see people that do stationery stuff, even jewelry, things like that. So there's some really good campaigns out there right now that have like necklaces and rings and bracelets and bags and like just really cool stuff. So it doesn't have to be like a tech thing or like enamel pins or anything like that.
My husband actually just pledged to a Kickstarter campaign last night, which I fully support because it's an Avatar: The Last Airbender tabletop game.
Oh my gosh.
And it already has $2.5 million in pledges. It's like broken Kickstarter, and it went viral on Reddit and all this stuff. And our cats are named after Avatar: The Last Airbender characters. So Will was like, babe, I have to pledge to this. And I was like, do it. And I said, and ironically, we're talking to Holly tomorrow about Kickstarter.
What a small world.
What a small world. Okay, so tell our audience, what are the first things you have to consider when organizing a Kickstarter, and maybe some of the pros and the cons?
So the first thing that you really have to think about when you're putting together a Kickstarter is how much time do you have to invest in this? Because I would say for my Celestial Stamps Kickstarter, the first one that I did, I put in about 90 to 100 hours into it, between educating myself, creating like all the graphics, coming up with shipping costs, creating the products themselves, researching that. I mean, there's just so much that goes into actually creating a campaign before you even launch that you really have to consider. So like, how much time do you have to put into this? How much do you believe in this project? Is this something that you are going to be willing to devote the next 6 months to a year of your life doing? Because your campaign, building up to your campaign is going to be anywhere from like 2 weeks to 2 months. Then you're going to have a 30 or 60 day campaign. And then after that, you're going to have to be managing pledges. And that takes a lot of time, depending on how many people support your project. And then once all of your products have been created, you actually have to fulfill those orders. And that can take a lot of time too. So I think I had like 150 something people pledge for my last Kickstarter. And it took me 3 days to fill all those, because some people order 1 pen, some people order 5 pens, some people order stickers, and you're shipping all over the place, and it's wild. So, it's a lot of time invested in this. And at the end of the campaign, you may not get anything from it. It may not reach its funding goal. So you have to really believe strongly that this campaign is going to do well and set realistic goals for yourself. Otherwise, you will have wasted 40, 50 hours for nothing. So that's like kind of, I would say, one of the like perks and downsides to crowdfunding is, unless your idea is really good, you might as well just release it in your shop.
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Because there's something about a Kickstarter campaign, like the way that it looks and the information is formatted, and the graphics and the things you put together, that as a consumer, like as a customer, I think you can kind of tell pretty quickly whether or not it's something you're actually interested in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know for like things like I do, like enamel pins, there isn't a lot that you can do really behind the scenes to make people more excited to buy. Like with Glowforge, they had videos, they had like a prototype that was already made, and so they could show you what it did. But with products, if you're making enamel pins or like even a stationery line that's all kind of cohesive, people kind of know what to do with that already. So you're really kind of down to telling a story rather than, hey, look, here's an up close shot of my my new notepad that I'm coming out with. It's not really going to like inspire people to pledge that way. What you really want to do is tell a good story through Kickstarter, and I think that is what gets people really invested in your campaign. So, yeah, I mean, pros and cons wise. I would say, like what you said, Elizabeth, the big con for me is that I can't be creative enough in Kickstarter. It's all very like rigid. Everything, it just has to be just so. It's kind of like Facebook. Like you can add photos to Facebook and stuff, but you can't change the layout. You can't change the colors. You can't change any of that. So you're stuck with a very like black and white, you have a header and you can make text bold and italicized, and that's it. And it's just
that's all you get.
That's all you get. There's nothing else. So it's kind of bland. But you can dress it up with graphics and things like that. It just takes more time. So yeah, it's all in what you make of it and what you put into it, for sure.
So when you have, are you driving traffic there for your audience, or does Kickstarter have like a built-in audience where people could find your campaign and you might get like new customers that way?
Okay, so I love that question because I didn't know any of this before I started Kickstarter. And they don't really do a good job of telling you this. Like what they tell you is you have to promote the crap out of your campaign. And so I was like fearful, like, oh my gosh, okay, I got to get emails together. I have to let everybody know weeks in advance about this campaign. But what they don't really tell you is they have an incredible community on Kickstarter of people that kind of just live there. Like myself included. That's why I've got 40 projects. I have the Kickstarter app on my phone. It alerts me when something new that I might like gets posted. And so like they've got my number. like
Yes.
they easily get my money because I'm like, ooh, a new enamel pen. Great. But they do have an incredible like base of people that are always on there, always willing to support projects. They have a bunch of backers that just pledge $1 of support to kind of like boost your campaign status a little bit, which is really awesome. And they also do like newsletters to kind of say like, here's a new fancy campaign that just got launched. Check it out. It's really cool. You're going to love it. And then they also pick their favorite projects. So if you have something that's just like really cool, it's got a great story, great graphics, things like that, they'll promote it in like a special, I think it's called like Kickstarter favorite or something like that. And it's just like a thing that gets boosted to the top of search results. But you don't have to have an audience to really be successful on Kickstarter. I would say that actually 70% of the people that pledge for my campaigns come from Kickstarter, not from my direct traffic. But it would not hurt to have some sort of audience that you could share that with, for sure. Just like with anything.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it kind of opens the world to all these new possibilities because as creatives, I think we get really hung up on just the investment side of things. Like I kind of backed out of basically going solo to do my like wax seal collection recently. I got all excited. I like worked up to it. I got samples. I was doing everything through Alibaba. And then they put together the final quote, which includes like $1,000 of shipping because it's coming from China. And I was like, and I'm
Hit
done.
the brakes.
But if I'm like, oh, okay, if I could rework this to maybe push some things through Kickstarter and have things go that direction first, maybe I would consider it because then you kind of have some of the capital up front.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's honestly like the ideal thing to do on Kickstarter, I think, is something like your wax seal collection because it's something unique and original. And it is something that, you know, you may not have like the cash to put up for it right now, but like if you crowdfunded even just a little bit of that, maybe you got, I might be getting ahead of myself a little bit, but maybe if you just got like one wax seal funded, then you could just use some of your own money for other things. You know, that's like the unique thing about Kickstarter is there's no like one size fits all sort of campaign for you. So I would definitely look into that though. That sounds cool. Like it'd be a good place for you.
Thank you. I mean, I've had my wax seal collection for like 3 years and I partner with a company that kind of manufactures them and sends them as they sell.
Yeah.
They've lived on my like little Etsy shop that I've had for a long time, you know, and mine truly is very little. It's just like my 12 wax seals and I kind of don't really touch it. And so yeah, that's something I would think about like revamping it to maybe give it new life. But like I said, when I was looking at the $5,000 something it would cost, I was like, oh gosh. We also talked to Carla from Written Word Calligraphy, and she was talking about how she's trying to get rid of her wax seals right now because she just doesn't have enough people buying them.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh, yikes. So anyhow.
Yeah, not a glowing endorsement right now.
No.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
That's why crowdfunding is so great.
But does Kickstarter take a percentage of the money?
They do, yes. They take, I believe it's 2 or 3% of your total earnings. And then they charge you, you know, a credit card processing fee and things like that. But you as the creator are responsible for collecting for shipping as part of your pledges. So even though Kickstarter, you know, offers that as a fulfillment service, like you have to kind of account for that in your funding goals. So that's something big to consider whenever you're creating a campaign. There is, you can't just think about what the product costs. You have to factor in the Kickstarter fees, credit card processing, and then shipping, because a lot of people forget that step. It's unpleasant.
And
at
then
the end.
like, sorry, I'm just like peppering you with all like the nitty gritty questions. But so collecting addresses, does Kickstarter, it will collect the addresses for you? Because, you know, if you like, or someone orders on your website, you like goes into a system, you can print off a label. Like, how does that fulfillment part work? It just seems, is it clunky?
It is very clunky. I personally like would never use Kickstarter's fulfillment services anymore, just because if you have more than one reward to fill, it gets really confusing. They just send you like a CSV of everybody's addresses and things like that. And you just kind of have to like put it all together. This time around, I am doing Backer Kit, which is a third-party service. They also charge you to use their service. I believe it's $200, which is totally worth it. 100% totally worth it. But they actually do this really cool thing where they'll add on shipping for you, so you don't have to include that as part of your pledges, which is great. And they also will do address collections, label printing for you, and they'll have like screens for add-ons at the end of your campaign. So if you have other similar products in your shop and they weren't part of the campaign, you can say like, hey, before you like sign off on this and you leave and you pay me, do you want to add anything else to your cart? And people can really easily add things on, and you can kind of like upsell a little bit without upselling anything at all. And it's just incredible. So I'm really excited to use that this time around. And I think it's going to be a lot easier than Kickstarter's fulfillment, which is just like, it took days to figure out what was going on with that. Days.
Yes, I'm glad that you said that, because like one of our later questions was, now that you're going into your second campaign, what would you do differently?
That's a big one.
From the first time. So there you go. That's a really big one.
Yes. That is the biggest change I made for sure. 100%.
Isn't it great having friends who are guinea pigs for you guys?
Yes. Oh, I wish I could have told everybody ages ago about Backer Kit before I had to go through it myself.
Yes, fun times. Okay, is it hard, Holly, to get a Kickstarter campaign approved? Like, how much goes into that, presenting your idea to them? Does everything have to be ready? Are you submitting kind of a general, here's my idea? Or, to what extent, I guess, do you need to have things ready to get it approved?
So they actually make it super easy. Like anybody can go in and do it. You don't even have to really have like an idea for a project. You can go into Kickstarter and create an account and say, I want to create a project. And there are step-by-step instructions of like, here's where you put in your like profile information. Here's where you put in your story of your campaign. Here's your bank account details. Here's how you're going to fulfill rewards, things like that. They ask you about 8 to 10 questions, sections of questions. And once those are all done, then you can officially submit to be approved for your launch. I don't think I've ever heard of anybody not being approved. Oh, wait, I take that back. One person that I know of did not get approved because they were using Disney characters as designs, which is a big no-no, such a big no-no. And a lot of times stuff like that will fly under the radar at Kickstarter. So I think it's all in how you present the idea. So I don't know. I don't really know how the approval process works, because sometimes I look at things and I'm like, how did that get approved? That's like clear trademark violation. I don't understand. But I think they're really just kind of checking to make sure you have all your T's crossed and your I's dotted. It's more of like, do you have your bank account details in here? Do you have a valid email address? Stuff like that. So it's really, really easy to get approved. Yeah.
Okay, so
You're good. I was waiting for Cammie to hop in.
So in my head, like I'm thinking, okay, so this is kind of like when I do like a pre-order for something on my website. So why did you decide to go with Kickstarter instead of doing like a pre-order on your own site?
I really wanted to reach a different audience with my pins, because I had never sold pins before. So it was very much like, I don't know how pins are going to do. I'm literally in the dark here. I have no idea. I don't even know. Like, I know Elizabeth has a pin, and Cammie, you've sold a couple, but like maybe not a couple anymore, is it? It's a few more than that. But but like I didn't know anybody else that had done this on like a retail level that I was close with enough to ask. So I was like, all right, I have to get in front of a new audience. What do I have to lose? Kickstarter is like an all or nothing campaign. If it doesn't get funded, I didn't lose out on anything except some time. And if it does get funded, then I at least get some experience without like crashing and burning through a pre-sale, because pre-sales like terrify me a little bit. I want to make sure I have all my ducks in a row with a pre-sale, because people are buying directly from you, so they trust you as a business. And I feel like you're a bit more faceless on Kickstarter. It's really, people kind of think like, oh, I'm buying from Kickstarter rather than like, I'm buying from Sablewood. So I felt a little bit more secure in that, knowing that, I had some wiggle room if things didn't work out. Oh, well, like these things happen. It's just not a great direction for my business. And if they do work out, wonderful, like everything's paid for. And I can just kind of focus on making sure that the experience is great for my customers and using any leftover funds towards, adding stickers to their products or to their packages, or, making sure that their backer cards are really cool and things like that. So it was more of like a self-preservation technique rather than any sort of like strategy.
I love that. I mean, one of the things with pre-orders that can be so scary is if you're like, one person orders it or two people and you're like, shoot, I actually needed like 50 people to order that in order to make this even like worthwhile for me to order. And you're like, now I got to refund these two people and look like super unprofessional. So I think Kickstarter kind of takes that element out of it, because if it doesn't get funded, they just get refunded, and it's not like,
exactly.
I don't know. It just seems less personal. So.
Yeah. It is definitely like less stressful for you as the creator, and also for the buyer, because they don't even get their credit card charged until the campaign gets funded. So if you pledge for something and it doesn't work out, they're just kind of like, oh, well, like it never came out of my bank account to begin with, so I'm not out any money.
Yeah.
So it's really cool. I think it's a neat way to launch a new product line for sure.
Yeah, it is really cool. It's a great platform and a great way to put something new out there. I'm a big fan. So Holly, I'm glad that you already mentioned before, like the amount of hours that went into this. That was originally something I was going to ask you, but I was like, man, maybe she doesn't even know because she like lost track. Because I have enough of a concept that I was like, this probably took her a decent amount of time.
Yeah.
But now that, your first Kickstarter was fully funded and you closed it, you wrapped it up, you shipped everything out. The behind the scenes for that, like now, how do the pins, I guess, continue to do in your shop? Do you feel like they still continue to perform really well? Like, was it worth the payoff of introducing a product that way? And like, you feel like you had good momentum? Like, can you shed some light on the behind the scenes of the product life for something after your Kickstarter is over?
Yes. So excited that you asked that, because they're like my number one seller now.
That's amazing.
I actually have a bunch sitting behind me right now, ready to go out. So after I launched the Celestial Stamps Kickstarter, I made the extras live in my Etsy shop, and I've reordered all the pins once since then. So that was, what was that, January that I shipped out, or February, I think. So I mean,
I think February,
like,
yeah.
Incredible. I order like 200 at a time. So like really great sales for just like these things that I came up with on a whim one day and said, I'm going to make enamel pins. And it just like, what was I thinking? But they do really, really well. And that's why I decided to launch a couple that were self-funded. So I have, my poppies that I just came out with, and then the lemons postage stamps. And those both do really well as well. So that's kind of why I was like, all right, I really love this stamp design. I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket and just go all in for these Kickstarter birth month blooms stamps, because the other ones just do so well. Everybody just loves them because they're so small. They're giftable items, and they're really easy to like put in a stocking or wrap up in a gift, give to like a bride or your bridesmaids as gifts, things like that. They're just like so fun, and they're having a moment right now too, kind of like stickers. So I think that also has been helping a lot.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah, and it's only going to get crazier because Christmas. So did you have them for Christmas last year? Was that?
I didn't. I did not.
Yes,
I was so bummed. I only had my anemones, which was the original design that I came out with, and those did like insanely well. And I was really bummed that my production facility that I used to make enamel pins, they were running behind because it was Christmas time. And so they were closed a bunch. And also I had, hundreds of pins for them to make. So they were just like, we won't have these to you until January or whatever it was. I was like, okay, sad face.
Okay, great.
All right. But these pins that I have in my Kickstarter currently should be, fingers crossed, ready by the end of November, ready to ship in December. So
Oh, yes.
yes, Christmas.
It's on. It is on.
Good
Like
timing.
Donkey Kong. It's going to be so great.
Yes.
Get
that
ready
is something
for
you
more packaging.
definitely have to consider, like when you're launching a Kickstarter, is how long it's going to take to fulfill everything. And do you want to hit any specific holiday? Like all of the pins that are coming out right now are for Halloween, which I think is just like, it's so weird to pledge for Halloween pins in August. But like that's when they're going to get there. They're going to get to your hands at the end of August or at the end of October at Halloween. So you got to think about that.
How long does a Kickstarter campaign typically last? Like a week or something? Or
It's 30 days
30
is what they
days.
recommend.
Okay.
But you can do 45 or 60, but 30 is like the sweet spot.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't want it to be too long.
Yes, totally agree. I was gonna say too, I still remember like getting my package of enamel pins after you had sent out everything in February, and that's like a package that I just wish I could go back and open over and over again. Like one of those like gifts or packages that are packaged just so great, like that experience of opening it and being so excited to see
gosh.
how everything came to life. And yeah, I just loved it, and I'm really excited for your next one. So you already told us a little bit about the back starter. Is that what it's called? The back kit.
Backer kit. Yeah.
Backer kit. Almost.
You almost got it.
Close enough.
I was really close, guys. So that's something you're doing differently this time. Are there any other things you're doing differently your second time now that you've done the process before?
Yeah. So backer kit is definitely the big thing. I also am not having so many options for reward pledge tiers, because the more pledge tiers you have, the more confusing it is in the back end whenever you're ready to fulfill orders. It gets confusing for everybody. So my recommendation, if you're doing a Kickstarter, is just have as few pledge tiers as possible, please. You're just going to save yourself so much time and grief. So that was a big thing.
Yeah, how many is too many, I guess? Like when do you feel like you cross the threshold of this is too confusing?
I think it gets too confusing when you have too many different products. So right now, for this current Kickstarter I'm working on, I have 12 pins, but one product. So they're all just pins. But my first Kickstarter I did, I had pins and I had stickers, and then I had 3 different prints that you could choose from. And it was a nightmare. So So, I mean, what I would recommend, if I were to do that again, I would probably bundle them and say, you don't choose like one pin, one sticker, one print. You get a bundle of a print, sticker, and pin. So like instead of making them 3 separate pledge tiers, you make them 1 pledge tier. And I think that would help a lot because, and I can't really like explain how confusing this is without showing you the CSV that Kickstarter sends you at the end, but it basically sends you everything, like the date and time these people pledged, what they pledged for, their address, any notes that they have, like everything. And it's a lot to sift through. So the more simple you can make it, the more your sanity is going to be saved later, for sure. So those are 2 big changes.
Yeah.
Other things are to just like
smart.
reuse stuff that you've used before. So I reused a lot of graphics and mock-ups that I used for my first campaign. I just tweaked them to kind of work with the current design rather than, it's not celestial anymore, it's florals. So I just changed that up a little bit. But yeah, it's just like with anything else in your business, like reusing everything over and over again is just going to be your lifesaver. So your first campaign will take you 100 hours. Your second one will be about 60. Your third one will be about 50. Things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get some of your time back.
Big fan of reusing all the things. So
Yes.
Cami, do you want to ask our final question we normally ask
Are we
everyone?
already at our final question? I don't even have
my gosh.
Yeah. We are,
Oh
which
my
is
gosh,
crazy.
this is bananas. Okay. Yes, our final question. We typically ask what your goal or intention is for the remainder of 2021, and how do you hope to end the year?
Like not drowning in work would be great.
Well, that's too bad because it's Christmas. So sorry, can't give you that.
I do have a couple goals that I set for myself that are more like numbers goals. So I usually set like a monetary goal that I want to hit by the end of the year, and also a number of sales goal. But this time I actually added, like, I would really love to have some sort of digital catalog for all of my products, because they're just getting overwhelming. I really, really want one badly. So I mean, really the most important thing for the rest of 2021 is to kind of get everything organized here in the studio, create some cool products to launch, and get this Kickstarter wrapped up really in a nice bow. Like, what was I thinking doing this at this time of year?
It happens.
Yeah.
When you always seem to choose a poor time, but
Yes.
so is life.
Such is life.
Such is life. Okay, Holly, you have a ton of great resources for stationers. So make sure you tell everyone where they can find you, where they can follow you, where your shop is located, and like where your resources for stationers are located. I want the people to know all the things.
All right. Well, I'm on Instagram, Sablewood Paper Co. And I also have an Etsy shop, which is where all my products live. It's also Sablewood Paper Co. But I have links to all of these places in my Instagram bio.
Okay.
But my stationer's resources live exclusively on my website, which is sablewoodpaper.com.
Okay.
So, yeah. Try to keep everything as separate as possible in any way that I can.
Yes, and your amazing mailing template too. That's on.
Yes.
Oh,
yes, my mailing template.
Everyone needs one. It's so cool.
I love it. Yes, you can find that in my education resources as well. So I keep all of that in the same place for you guys. But I love that little guy.
And Holly, are you able to produce those in-house now on your Glowforge?
Yeah,
that's
so
awesome.
I can produce them on demand. So if you order one and they're sold out, just shoot me a message and I can get that out to you within like the day. So yes.
I know. Love my Glowforge. Holly and I are Glowforge buddies,
Yes,
and Holly used my referral link because she's my best friend ever. If you truly love me, you guys, you will use one of our referral links when you buy a Glowforge.
That's
like,
right.
If you have
That's
a friend,
real friendship there.
That
is real friendship. That if you're buying a Glowforge, please ask your friends who already have one to use their referral link. It's amazing.
Shameless plug. We both have one. We'll send it to you.
Yeah. Just like roll a die to figure out who you're going to choose or something if you can.
Just get two of them. I mean, why not? Like, double your production.
Ooh, yeah. That sounds nice.
I know. Holly has I can see behind her, which, sorry guys, we're always saying I can see this or I can see that. And everyone on the podcast is probably like, we hate you because we can't see anything. But behind Holly's head, she has her Glowforge like going through her wall. The vent goes through your wall outside the backside of your studio, which is like really nice because right now I just crack a window and stick the tube out there every time. So it'd be nice to get someone like a contractor in or something to take half a day or whatever. Not even probably to like drill through the wall and
you
do
don't
something
even need
like
a contractor for that. We just got a little hand drill out.
But what about like wires?
Yeah, you're gonna have to find out where those wires are for sure.
And like air vents, and so I don't want to just like drill through the side of my wall of my house and accidentally totally mess something up.
That'd be pretty bad.
Anyways, Holly, we have loved having you here. I will let Cammie kind of do the housekeeping. I almost said housewarming.
I will housewarm and housekeep for us right now.
Yes.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you guys for having me on.
Wait, it's not time. Hold on.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I am housekeeping, Holly. Please. Jeez, Holly.
I am dying. This is amazing.
Let's get the house. Okay.
Poor Holly.
I know. I'm so sorry, Holly. Threw up your game there. Anyway, everyone, before I'm so rudely interrupted by our guest, if you love us and you want to leave us a review, please do that. Please leave a 5-star review for us on iTunes. And then if you are buying a Glowforge, contact Elizabeth or Holly so you can use the referral link. I don't know what that gets you, but I know it gets them something. So that's important. And then if you are listening, screenshot this, upload it to your stories, and be like, these silly gooses are so much fun, and tag all of us on Instagram so we can see that you're listening. It always makes us happy. And, questions? Okay, then go to, sorry, I'm in a silly go-away mode. Go to bizbirthdaybash.com/Q and Cake and leave your questions there, and we'll answer them on a Q and Cake episode. And now, without further ado, Holly, go ahead.
Why, thank you. On a serious note, thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it. I love talking to you guys. And I'm so glad that I got to share Kickstarter knowledge and how much I hate packaging keychains and the studio progress and all of that. It's always a joy.
I know that Cammie and I laugh during every episode, but I don't know if I've laughed so hard while recording before as we have with having Holly here. It's just a joyful group of ladies, and I love it so much. So that's all basically when Holly and I are on FaceTime. We just laugh the whole time too. So
yes,
this was a super fun episode. I even threw in some Portuguese in there that I didn't know I remembered. So
you did?
I must have missed the Portuguese.
I didn't think I pronounced it right, but I said ask a question. We gotta go. This is too much.
All right, everyone. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. We were so happy to have you today. Bye, Holly. Thanks so much for being here.
Bye.
Hey guys, we just wanted to hop in and talk about one of our amazing resources, the A to Z directory. All of us have thought at some point, how did she do that or how did she make that? And maybe you don't know where to start or how the heck to produce this amazing product you've dreamt up.
Well, the A to Z directory is the missing puzzle piece in your biz, you guys. Seriously. So it's built in the form of a yearly membership, and it's your one-stop shop for finding suppliers and vendors for all the things. Literally where to print everything from custom invitations, greeting cards, mugs, koozies, acrylic printing, letterpress, custom ribbon. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And it literally goes from A to Z. From acrylic printers to zipper pouches, we have it in the A to Z directory.
We want to help all of you search less and create more with this list of 300 plus vendors and suppliers. Don't worry, they're very organized. It's not going to be overwhelming and confusing when you join. And this membership also includes access to a private Facebook community. It's incredibly active and involved. And if you need a question answered fast, that is definitely the place to go.
Yeah, our Facebook group really is the best. You guys, everyone is so helpful in there. And we're in there too, answering questions you guys might have. So it's a great way to get access to us and ask us things without sliding into our DMs. So we're more likely to answer you in the Facebook group, just saying. Anyway, also in the Facebook group, this is new for 2020 and we're really excited about it. We are hosting monthly Power Hour Q&A sessions that are live, and these are only available to our A to Z directory members. So you can hop in with us live and ask us all your burning questions in real time and just hang out with us every month. And we do these at different times so you can actually be there live, and the replays are always available in the Facebook group for members.
This resource is priced at $147 a year, which honestly is extremely affordable and is full of so many benefits, such as exclusive vendor coupons for members only. And we would love to have you guys join. Seriously, it's kind of like our family and our tribe. So visit bizbirthdaybash.com/directory to sign up today and use coupon code podcast2020 to receive $20 off your first year. That's podcast, all caps, 2020 for $20 off your first year.
We can't wait to see you in the Facebook group.